Hello and welcome. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by a messy pantry, you're not alone. In this video, I'm sharing some simple yet highly effective tips for organizing your pantry, making it easier to find what you need and reducing waste in your home. Have you ever opened your pantry and felt like you were in a jungle of cans, bags, and half-used snacks? I've been there. It's frustrating, and honestly, I've wasted so much food just because I couldn't find what I was looking for. Well, it doesn't have to be this way anymore. The goal here is to create a pantry system that works for your family, helps you keep track of what's used up, and keeps everything accessible. No more expired cans hidden at the back of the shelf or piles of snack bags falling out when you open the door. Plus, I'll show you how simple it is to avoid overbuying by tracking usage and updating your pantry regularly. So stick around and don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you can stay tuned for more helpful tips and tricks to make your home run a little smoother. Let's dive in. Now let's jump into the first key step to organizing your pantry, categorizing your pantry. One of the most effective methods is creating clear, easy-to-follow categories for your food. I know it sounds simple, but trust me, having this structure will make all the difference in keeping your pantry tidy and functional. Start by grouping similar items together. Think about the categories that make the most sense for your household snacks: spices, canned goods, dry grains like rice and pasta, and so on. By categorizing these, you're not only creating an organized space, but also making it easier to find what you need when you need it. I always keep my nuts and snacks in one section right near the door of the pantry. It's convenient, especially since my kids are always grabbing a handful for a quick snack. It's also a lot easier to avoid rummaging through the whole pantry when everything is in its designated spot. When it comes to dry goods like rice, pasta, and beans, I always keep those together in one area. This creates consistency and a little mental peace when I'm doing meal prep. Fresh produce and frozen items, of course, need their own separate space to stay fresh, so make sure they have their own shelves too. Another helpful tip is using containers for smaller items, things like spices, granola bars, or drink packets. Labeling them clearly will help everyone in the family know exactly where things belong. And don't forget to periodically check your pantry and adjust the categories as needed. After all, life changes, and sometimes your pantry needs to keep up with that. It's all about making your life just a little bit easier. And don't miss tomorrow's video. We'll dive into how things can stay the same for so long until you make a change that truly transforms everything. Trust me, it's one you'll want to see. Now that you have a clear system for categorizing your pantry, it's time to tackle the foundation literally. Next, let's talk about cleaning and organizing the pantry floor. You know the drill: piles of mismatched items, stray bags of chips that never seem to find their way to a shelf, or those random things you thought you'd use but just never did. Before you can properly organize anything, the floor needs to be cleared. And I mean everything. Start by picking up anything that doesn't have a designated spot. If it's just floating around, it's probably time to find a home for it, or better yet, toss it. I'm guilty of this too. When I first tackled my pantry, I realized I had forgotten about so many expired items just sitting there taking up valuable space. It was a wake-up call. So I immediately started tossing things that were long past their expiration date. No more hoarding things because I might use them someday. Once the floor is clear, I make sure to use small containers or baskets to organize the smaller items. These are things that could easily get lost in the shuffle: spice packets, snack bags, or even random kitchen gadgets that don't have a home. By using containers, I can group similar things together and avoid the mess of random items piling up again. Plus, it's so much easier to grab what I need without sifting through a pile of clutter. After this simple process, I always feel a sense of relief. There's something about having a clean, open floor space that just makes the pantry feel more manageable. It's a small action, but it goes a long way in helping me feel more in control of the space. And let's be honest, when your pantry is organized, the whole kitchen seems to follow suit. With a clean and organized space, it's time to think about the best way to manage your pantry items. Now let's move on to the FIFO system. It's simply using the FIFO method, or first in, first out. The idea is simple but powerful. The first items you put in should be the first ones you use. This is particularly useful for dry foods, canned goods, or anything with an expiration date. Trust me, it will save you from the heartbreak of tossing out expired food you forgot about. Here's how it works when you buy new groceries. Make sure you place them behind the older items on your pantry shelves. It sounds so easy, but it really does help. For example, when I bring home new cans of beans or pasta, I always push the older ones to the front, ensuring they're used first. This way, I'm not accidentally letting things sit around for months and getting lost in the shuffle. You'd be amazed at how much food gets wasted just because it's buried behind newer items. Checking expiration dates regularly is key. I've learned the hard way that it's all too easy to forget about those cans of soup at the back of the pantry. So now, every few weeks, I go through everything and check what needs to be used soon. If I find something that's near expiration, it goes straight to the front of the shelf. Prioritize those older items. It's a simple task, but it can help you avoid those moments when you realize you've been eating the same jar of peanut butter for way too long. At the end of the day, setting up a FIFO system doesn't just help you avoid wasting food, it also makes your pantry so much easier to manage. Everything has a clear place, and you'll be more intentional about using what you already have before buying more. Now that you've got a system for keeping things fresh, let's talk about making the smaller items in your pantry more manageable. Next, let's discuss using baskets and containers to keep things organized. Let's be honest, small items in the pantry can be a real headache. Spices, snacks, nuts, and other little things tend to scatter and get lost in the shuffle, right? Well, here's a simple trick. I swear by use baskets and containers to group similar items together. This doesn't just help with keeping things tidy. It also makes it so much easier to grab what you need without creating a mess. Trust me, I've tried it all, and this method has saved me more time than I'd like to admit. I use clear plastic or glass containers for dry goods like nuts and snacks, and I've found that using small baskets for spices is a game changer. For example, I keep all my spices in little baskets, which are easy to pull out and quickly access when I'm cooking. No more digging around for that elusive jar of cumin while I'm in the middle of preparing dinner. This simple system also prevents those little packets from spilling everywhere and getting mixed up with something else. You can always label each container clearly, so you'll know exactly what's inside at a glance. For dry goods like flour, rice, or pasta, I use airtight containers to keep moisture out and ensure they last longer. I've had way too many times when I opened a bag of rice only to find it's gone stale, or worse, full of little bugs. Not a pleasant experience. So now I'm a huge fan of clear plastic or glass containers that seal tightly. This keeps everything fresh and lets me see what I've got without opening each bag. Another great trick is using pull-out shelves or drawer organizers to keep these containers in place. This saves space and helps avoid the dreaded pantry avalanche when I open the door. Honestly, having everything neatly grouped and labeled doesn't just make things look better. It brings a sense of calm knowing exactly where everything is. With everything neatly contained, the next step is maintaining it. Next, we'll talk about the importance of a monthly pantry check. I've learned the hard way that letting food sit in the pantry for too long can lead to unwanted surprises, expired cans, dried up spices, and those half-empty bags of snacks no one will ever finish. By taking just a small amount of time to check everything over, I save myself from wasting food and money. The first thing I do is check for expired items. If I see something that's past its expiration date, it's out, no questions asked. I also make sure I'm aware of what I have left in the pantry to avoid buying duplicates when I go shopping. This also helps me avoid impulse purchases and unnecessary spending. For example, there's nothing worse than coming home from the store with a new box of pasta, only to realize you already had 2 unopened ones at the back of the pantry. Been there, done that, and it's not fun. To make it easier for myself, I've also created a pantry log. It's a simple list of what's in my pantry and when I bought it, along with expiration dates. This way, I'm never caught off guard. At the start of each month, I check this list to make sure everything's still good to go and update it as needed. I also make it a habit to store less used items at the back of the pantry, leaving the more frequently used items like snacks, rice, and pasta easily accessible at the front. This keeps everything organized and ensures that we use things in the right order. Honestly, creating this monthly routine has made my pantry feel so much more manageable, and I can easily see what needs to be restocked. By now you're keeping track of what's in your pantry, but let's take it one step further. Let's move on to buying less and planning more. Let's be real, how many times have you come home from the store with more food than you could possibly eat in a week, and yet somehow your pantry's still half empty by the next trip? I've been there. The just-in-case mentality often leads to buying more than you actually need, and before you know it, you're dealing with overflowing shelves and expired items. So I've made a conscious decision to stop overbuying and keep my pantry lean and efficient. Now I buy only what we'll use in the upcoming week. Gone are the days of stocking up on extra cans of beans or pasta, thinking that you never know when you'll need it. I've realized that planning ahead is the key. Every week I make a grocery list based on a meal plan for the week. That way I know exactly what I need and nothing more. I've found that this not only saves me money, but also cuts down on the stress of managing too many food items. Meal planning has been a game changer. It keeps me from buying things on a whim, and it's helped me avoid falling for those great deals on items I don't even need. I used to get sucked into the temptation of buying food just because it was on sale, only to find it gathering dust in the pantry weeks later. Now I stick to what we'll actually eat. By reducing my pantry stock, I've created a space that's much easier to manage. I know what I have, and there's no need to worry about things expiring or going to waste. Plus, it's nice to walk into a pantry that doesn't feel like a chaotic mess of half-used bags and boxes. It's simple and it works. Now that you're buying smarter, let's keep it that way. It's time to track your pantry usage to ensure you're always stocked with what you actually need. Now, let's take a look at tracking pantry usage. If you're like me, you've probably faced that frustrating moment when you open your pantry only to realize you've run out of something essential like flour or sugar, and had no idea until you were in the middle of baking. To avoid these little surprises, I've adopted a habit of tracking what I've used and what I need to replenish. It might sound like extra work, but trust me, it's a total game changer in keeping everything under control. First, I keep a simple food log. Whenever I use something up, I make a note of it. You can use an old-fashioned notebook, or even a food management app to keep track. I also add a small note or tag on the item itself if it's running low, so I'm reminded to restock it next time I'm at the store. It's a super small habit, but it helps me stay organized and prepared. For instance, if I use the last of the pasta or open a new bag of flour, I'll mark it down so I can keep an eye on how much is left. Another trick is keeping a running list of what's been used and what needs to be bought. This has helped me avoid buying unnecessary items or doubling up on things I already have. I used to buy pasta every time I went shopping, only to find out I had 3 open bags already. Now I know exactly when I need to replenish something. It's all about being proactive, not reactive. Having this routine of tracking usage not only saves me money but also prevents food waste. I'm no longer surprised by items I've forgotten about or bought too much of, and my pantry stays tidy and efficient. It's a simple step that has made a big difference in keeping my home running smoothly. Now we are going to talk about the grocery store method. Start by grouping similar items together into categories like snacks, canned goods, spices, and grains. Once everything is grouped, you'll have a clear path and designated spot for each item. For example, I label my shelves with categories like snacks, spices, and dry goods. This makes it so much easier for my family to find what they need without having to dig through everything. I also make sure to organize items by frequency of use. Things like pasta or rice go on the top shelves because I use them often, while less used items like baking supplies go lower down. This method, inspired by grocery store organization, helps me avoid clutter and makes it super simple to see what I need to restock. Plus, no more forgotten cans of beans at the back of the shelf. When you have a clear, easy-to-navigate system, you'll know exactly what you're running low on when it's time for your next shopping trip. By keeping it organized this way, your pantry will stay neat and you won't waste time or money on food you already have. Finally, let's talk about the easiest trick to keep your pantry organized: simplicity. In the past, I tried to overcomplicate things with fancy systems and extravagant storage solutions, only to find myself overwhelmed and frustrated. Let's face it, life is busy enough without making organizing a full-time job. So I've shifted my mindset. Keeping things simple is not only easier, but it also makes the whole process more sustainable in the long run. I've realized it's best to organize only when I have the time and energy for it. Trying to tackle everything at once when I'm feeling tired or rushed just doesn't work. I used to go on a cleaning spree thinking I could reorganize the entire pantry in one go, but that usually ended up with half-done shelves and me feeling more stressed. Now I focus on small, manageable tasks. I might reorganize one shelf or declutter a section, and it's done no overwhelming myself with a massive project. Another big change I have made is updating my organizing system only when needed. If something is working, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. For instance, if I find that a certain shelf isn't as efficient anymore, or the family keeps misplacing the snacks, I'll make a small tweak. But I don't make drastic changes every few weeks. Consistency is what makes things easier for everyone in the house, especially when the kids need to grab snacks, or when I'm in the middle of meal prep. Lastly, I've set a simple goal to reorganize my pantry at least once a year or seasonally, rather than constantly shifting things around. This prevents me from feeling burnt out and keeps the space manageable. The result: a tidy pantry that doesn't overwhelm me and a home that runs a little smoother. So there you have it. Simple, actionable tips that can transform your pantry into a well-organized, efficient space. By categorizing your food, setting up systems like FIFO, and checking in on your pantry regularly, you can keep things running smoothly without the overwhelm. I know it's not always easy, but you don't have to do it alone. I'm right here with you, sharing these tips to make your life just a little easier. If you're ready for more, check out my next video where we'll talk about how sometimes your home can stay the same. It's a mess until you make a change that truly transforms everything. You won't want to miss it. It's packed with ideas that will make a huge difference in your daily life. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. You deserve a life that's easier and more enjoyable, so go ahead and share these tips with your friends and family too.